Hello, I am Dr. David Santos. We're continuing on in our study of classical pagan myths and religions. And in this video, we're going to be looking at the Queen of Heaven. And specifically, we're looking at the Egyptian goddess Isis and how she becomes more than just a goddess of fertility, a goddess of the Nile. She has this amazing background story, and she is introduced to the entire known world, and her worship as a mystery religion spreads certainly to Greece through the island of Delos, and then into the Roman world, becomes a very prominent figure within the Roman world. And we see, along with her husband from the Hellenistic period, that is called Serapis, and he is originally Osiris in Egypt, and they have a son, Horus. Their story together is a unique one, but Isis herself becomes extremely prominent as the Queen of Heaven. She becomes known within some of the mythology as the god of all gods. She declares herself in one work as having she is the one true god, and all other gods are just other names for her. And that's true whether they're male or female. So earlier than that's not true, but it eventually develops into that, at least in one work. So let's jump into the introduction. She's a universal goddess, and she has many faces, as I was trying to allude to. The cult of Isis really stands as one of the most enduring and adaptable religious traditions of the ancient world. And it originates in Egyptian mythology. And Isis evolved into this mystery goddess in the Hellenistic world and ultimately became a universal deity in the Roman Empire. Her ability to merge with local deities, and she absorbs all these foreign religions. We call it syncretism. And she absorbs those foreign religious elements. It contributed to her widespread appeal across Egypt, Greece, and Rome. More than just a mother and protector, Isis was revered as a goddess of magic, wisdom, and the afterlife, offering both cosmic order and personal salvation. That becomes the big one, especially in the Roman world, is this idea of personal salvation. It's interesting that Christianity comes along and is obviously different from that religion, from worship of Isis, because when they talk about personal salvation in these cults, they don't mean the same thing that Christians mean. So we'll see that. Her cult's expansion reflects this larger pattern of religious synchronistic ideas. It's politically adaptable, theological. They have this theological evolution, making her one of the most influential figures in ancient religion. Yet, as her worship spreads, she became the subject of biblical opposition, particularly from prophetic warnings against the Queen of Heaven. The Hebrew prophets condemned goddess worship, associating it with idolatry and divine judgment, as seen in Jeremiah 7:18, which warns, quote, "The woman knead dough and make cakes to offer the Queen of Heaven." So I think she's referenced there 4 times, just this broadly speaking, the Queen of Heaven in Jeremiah. This tension between pagan goddess worship and biblical monotheism highlights the competing religious worldviews of the ancient world, and it sets the stage for later Christian responses to Isis and similar goddesses. When we look at the Egyptian Isis, she has the idea of a mother, and you can even take the idea of motherhood further. She has all the various concepts of womanhood. She could be a loving mother. She can be a caring wife. She can be a harlot. She can be anything that a female can be. She can be any of those things. She's also a powerful, cunning magician. I add cunning there because that's part of the mythology, is how she gains her magical power. She's also a protector, which is somewhat linked to her idea behind motherhood. So Isis first appears in Egyptian religious texts as a divine mother and a healer and a powerful sorceress. Her origins are deeply rooted in the Osiris myth. It's one of the most influential religious narratives in Egypt, and according to this tradition, Osiris is Isis's husband and the rightful ruler of Egypt. He was murdered by his jealous brother Set. After dismembering Osiris's body and scattering the pieces across Egypt, Set seized the throne for himself. Isis, using her magical abilities, reassembles Osiris and revived him long enough. We are a family show, but just to put it this way, they conceive a child. They have a son, Horus. Osiris ultimately ends up in the underworld. He becomes the overseer of the underworld. Isis is going to become the one that takes souls to the underworld, especially anyone who is a king or a pharaoh. She's in charge of taking that soul of the ruler and handing him off to Osiris in the underworld. Their son, Horus, becomes the divine emperor or divine pharaoh. And whenever you have a leader change, when pharaoh dies, passes it off to his son, it's seen as Horus being resurrected into that new pharaoh's body, new emperor's body. So obviously this is Egyptian. It becomes part of the Roman Empire. So what happens is some of the Roman emperors, and this happens really early, these Roman emperors take the same idea, take the same mythology, and apply it to themselves. So we'll discuss that more shortly. So beyond her connection to Osiris and Horus, Isis is also known as the great sorceress and mistress of magic. Egyptian texts depict her as a goddess with unparalleled wisdom and knowledge, possessing the ability to heal the sick, resurrect the dead, even manipulate the gods themselves. And one of the most famous episodes of her myth describes how she tricked the sun god Ra into revealing his secret name, thus gaining ultimate magical authority. This is how she gets her magical power. Well, she was a sorceress, but she amplifies it by gaining the true name of Ra. Her command over life, death, supernatural forces made her one of the most revered deities in Egyptian religion. So here's a little text from the pyramid text. I am Isis, she who conceived a child by her brother Osiris. Oh yeah, by the way, her husband Osiris is also her brother. Continuing on. She who gave birth to the child alone, she who raised up the child, she who gave him life, she who placed him on the throne of his father, she who provided for him protection of the gods. End quote. Isis, in the Hellenistic world, she's the goddess of the mysteries. And with the arrival of Greek rule under Ptolemies in the 4th century BC, Isis underwent this transformation. She's no longer just a motherly protector of the pharaoh. She became a universal savior goddess associated with mystery cults, initiation rites, and personal salvation. So she's the most popular. When we get to the first, second century AD. She's the most popular of the mystery religions. She's going to be linked with other goddesses like Demeter. In the Egyptian world, she's really closely related to Hecate, and along with Demeter, I'll get to all that in a second, but she's linked to all these other religions. So we have this syncretisms taking place, blending them all, pushing all these other gods into this one. My interest in the study of Isis was really about the biblical study of Revelation and trying to understand what first, second century Christians would have thought, what images would have come to their mind when they read the book of Revelation and saw the woman that rides a beast, when they see it as a mystery religion. And so I examined a bunch of them, and I looked at this mystery cult of Isis, and I thought, this really is a universal goddess who is a harlot, who could portray a mother, who could do all the things that we would think of when we consider the woman of Revelation. So that's my interest. So the Ptolemies linked her to Demeter, the Greek goddess of agriculture, and the Eleusinian mysteries. So we're adding more mysteries to her portfolio of mythology. They drew parallels between Isis's resurrection of Osiris and Demeter's search for her lost daughter Persephone. The Hellenization of Isis led to the establishment of Greek-style temples, where her worship was infused with Platonism and Stoicism, and unlike traditional Egyptian religion, which was highly ritualistic and temple-based, the Greek Isis cult emphasized personal, spiritual transformation. Devotees underwent an initiation, and they had initiation rites that symbolized death and rebirth, much like those of the Eleusinian and Dionysian mysteries. In this new form, Isis was not only a queen and a healer, but also a guide to the afterlife, offering eternal salvation to her followers. I see this simply as satanic and demonic and trying to distort what the real gospel is. And for some people, this becomes a real problem. They try to make the case that Christianity stole these things from them. It's really not the case. These are some of the standard things from their mythology, but Christianity didn't come along and go, oh, well, yeah, let's use this. It's more the other way around. And if anything else, it's Satan anticipating some aspects of this and making a forgery religion. So when we look, let me just scroll down here. So Isis is now in this new form. She's not only a queen and a healer, but also a guide to the afterlife, offering eternal salvation to her followers. Here's from Plutarch. Isis is the eternal mother, the sustainer of all things, the giver of laws, the queen of the underworld, and the source of life. Plutarch really liked Isis and Osiris, or Isis and Serapis. So let's look at Isis in Rome, and the Queen of Heaven and universal goddess. The spread of Isis worship in Rome was met with both resistance and eventual acceptance, initially during the Republican period from, say, 500 BC to 27 BC. The Roman Senate banned her cult due to its foreign origins and potential political influence. However, by the time of the early empire, Isis had become one of the most popular deities in Rome. So this actually happened a lot in the Roman Republic. They would come out, they would ban things. This is bad. We need to get back to traditional worship. And then the next year, you'd see, oh, Isis temple's back. So that's just one of those things that happen. Even when we get to the empire, it depended on which emperor was in control. Octavian or Augustus, he presented himself as a traditionalist, and yet he wasn't really all the time. He was in his rhetoric, though. He allowed these foreign religions to continue on in the city of Rome. Others, like Tiberius, would just get angry. They'd wipe them all out, just take him down to the ground, and then again they would be back. It didn't take them too long. Roman emperors, Isis has become one of the most popular deities in Rome, and interestingly, it was worshipped by both commoners and emperors alike. That's an important piece of this puzzle. Roman emperors, particularly those with ties to Egypt, really embraced Isis as a divine protector of the state. She's associated with maritime safety, making her a patron goddess of seafarers and merchants. That's an important one because that's how her worship spreads across the known world, is because it's the merchants and the sailors that are looking at her much in the same way as saints are today for some. And they see that as their protector of their personal group. So over time, Isis assimilated aspects of the Roman imperial cult, with emperors adopting Osirian symbolism to reinforce their legitimacy. She's often depicted holding a cistern or a sistrum. This is like a sacred rattle, wearing a crescent-shaped headdress and cradling the infant Horus. This is the imagery that would later be echoed in Christian depictions of Mary and the Christ child. In a way, I want to be careful with that, but look, you go back 1st century, 2nd century, 3rd century. You have especially 3rd, 4th century, you have Christians being converted. Well, that's not what you have people converted to Christianity. They bring their old religions with them. And if they were familiar with the Isis cult, where Isis is often depicted with a child, then you go and you read or you learn about Mary and the child. The imagery would just naturally seem to fit. It's an organic thing. They're not necessarily trying to be bring in paganism, but they do. And some aspects of the church end up just embracing those ideas and allow it in order to be inclusive. So here's a quote. This is from Apuleius, and it is a work called, actually the original title is Metamorphos. In order to not be confused with the Metamorphos that we've studied in the previous lecture, it gets to be known as the golden ass, like donkey. And here he writes, this is Isis speaking. I am nature, the universal mother, mistress of all the elements, first offspring of the ages, supreme among deities, queen of the dead, foremost among the celestials, the single manifestation of all gods and goddesses. End quote there. So in Apuleius' work, she is the god of gods. So what we're going to look at a few things. We're going to look more deeply into religious syncretisms, how Isis transforms across cultures. That's a key attribute of Isis. Here's a reading for you. This is from early church father Diodorus Siculus, and this is Bibliotheca Historica. Isis, because of her discovery of the cultivation of wheat and barley, was given the same honors as Demeter among the Greeks. Her priests perform secret rites, just as do those in the Eleusis. So we're going to also look some more at political and social roles. Isis is a state-sponsored and personal deity. Unlike some deities who remained confined to one sphere of influence, Isis was both a state-sponsored goddess and a personal savior. In Rome, she's venerated by emperors, but also maintained mystery cults, emphasizing personal spiritual rebirth. And we're going to look at the biblical opposition as we saw in Jeremiah 7. As we explore the rise, spread, and opposition to the Isis cult, we'll see how her legacy influenced later religious traditions, including early Christian thought and Marian devotion and medieval mysticism. Okay, continue to look at the Egyptian Isis. Like we've said, she's a mother, she's a magician, she's a protector, and one of the most important goddesses of Egyptian culture, but also becomes the same whether it's in Greek traditions and especially in Roman traditions. We see her being very prominent. It's that core myth where Isis and Osiris that is one of the most significant narratives of Egyptian religion, and it shapes the theological and political landscape of the ancient world. And according to the tradition, Osiris is the rightful ruler. So you can see in here ideas, political ideas about what a ruler is and how succession should take place. That's one of the main reasons that Isis becomes a goddess associated with the elites of her time. Isis is a devoted wife, and she'll do anything to help her husband, and then followed by her son, maintain their rightful position within the ancient world. So Osiris ultimately has a second death. Isis retreated into hiding to protect and raise Horus. So this is after she resurrects Osiris. They have a son. And then as Horus grew, Isis used her wisdom, cunning, and spells to shield him from danger, guides him to adulthood until he can defeat Set and reclaim his father's legacy. This myth not only reinforces Isis' role as a mother and protector, but solidifies the concept of divine kingship, as Egyptian pharaohs were considered the living embodiment of Horus. So from the pyramid text, it says of Isis, "I am Isis, the great goddess, the mother of Horus, the mighty one." The early reference to Isis in the pyramid text highlights her maternal and protective role, emphasizing divine authority over kingship and the afterlife. Her connection to Osiris and Horus made her this crucial figure in state religion, where pharaohs invoked her as the divine guardian. She's the supreme magician. Beyond her role as a mother and queen, she is the most powerful sorceress in Egypt, wielding magic that even surpasses the gods. She was often referred to as the Great Sorceress, a title that underscores her unrivaled mastery of the supernatural. Her most famous display of power comes from the myth where she tricks Ra into revealing his secret name, which amplifies her abilities. According to Egyptian texts, Ra had many names, but his true hidden name contained the essence of his power. So Isis was seeking to secure a higher place among the gods, devised a plan to extract this knowledge. She created a magical serpent from Ra's own saliva and placed it in his path. When the serpent bit Ra, he was stricken with unbearable pain. None of the gods could heal him. Isis offered to cure him, but only on the condition that he reveal his true name. Desperate, Ra whispers his secret name to her, and in doing so transferred a portion of his divine power to her. The part of that that's missing in at least some versions of this, Ra tries to trick her the first time and gives her the wrong name, but she perceived that this was a lie, knowing that he'd been lied to. Oh, I can't heal you. Must be something wrong. If you'd given me your real name, then this should work. Oh, I didn't really do it. I was just testing you. Then he passes on the real name, and then she heals him and gains that power. Here's a reading from the coffin text beginning. Isis, the Great One, the mother of the god, she knew how to speak. She knew how to write. She, the most clever among the gods. So attributed with knowledge, and all these knowledge of knowing things and speaking things and writing things. It acknowledges Isis's intelligence, literacy, and magical ability, portraying her not only as a healer, but as a divine strategist who used wisdom and cunning to ascend in power. The trickery of Ra reinforced her image as the goddess of hidden knowledge, magic, and transformation, making her the ideal deity for sorcerers, healers, and priests. The worship of Isis was not confined to temples and state rituals. She is a personal deity invoking daily prayers, funerary texts, and magical spells. So as noted, she's the protector of pharaohs. That's how they work out succession from one father to son kind of thing. Another reading from the Temple of Seti. Isis, the mother of the divine ruler, spreads her wings over him, shielding him with the breath of her magic. So, protector of pharaohs. She is the healer and bringer of resurrection. Isis was invoked in funerary rituals where she was believed to assist souls of the dead in their journeying to the afterlife, and that's associated to that original mythology surrounding Osiris and Osiris going to the afterworld. She has many healing spells, magical amulets bore her name, emphasizing her power to cure illness and ward off evil spirits. Here's a quote from the Metternich Stela. She who revives the breath of the dead, she who heals the wounds of mortals, she whose words restore life. So again, she's also related to fertility and motherly care. From the Lamentations of Isis and Nephthys, quote, "Come to your mother, O divine child. Let her embrace you. Let her nourish you with her milk so that you can be strong in the land of the living." So our conclusion for this section, the foundation of an enduring cult. Isis's influence in Egyptian religion was all-encompassing, making her one of the most powerful and beloved deities in the ancient world. Her role as divine mother, a master magician, protector of kings, allowed her to be worshipped at every level of society, from pharaohs in grand temples to commoners in the household. And it's these abilities that she has that makes her popular. She can raise the dead, she can heal the sick, she can grant wisdom, made her a universal figure in magical and religious practices. Now, remember, when we talk about universal salvation, things like that she has, those things were attributed to her for this present life. You could join the cult, become part of the club, and then you could gain for yourself or your offspring a better position within society in present day. The transition from Egyptian Isis to Greco-Roman Isis was not just a religious transformation, but also a political and cultural shift. It reflects the way ancient societies adapted their gods to fit the new religious landscape. Her journey from Pharaoh's protector to Queen of Heaven would ultimately influence later traditions, including Christianity, Gnosticism, medieval Marian devotion. So, yeah, Christianity was influenced, good and bad. I mean, these things are somewhat just influenced from the fact that they recognize there is a false religion out there. Here's the things that they do. Some of the accusations that were made against Christians were based on mystery religions, because they looked at Christianity at times like a mystery religion. Christians are getting together, they're going off, they are having these secret meetings. Well, yeah, when you're persecuted, you tend to have secret meetings. That's true. They're getting together and they're having love fests. That's the accusation against the ISIS cult, was there's women there. And because there's women there and they're hiding themselves away within these practices, what must be going on behind closed doors? So they took that and they looked at Christians and they went, what must be going on behind those closed doors? It's a mixed group. There's men and women. So many in the Roman world interpreted Christianity through the lens of their understanding of the pagan world. They accused Christians of being atheists. Why is that? No, they believe in one God. No. You guys are atheists. You don't believe in our gods. You don't believe in Isis. You don't believe in Apollo. You don't believe in any of these. It's a problem. So you must be atheists. Which brings us to Isis in the Hellenistic world. The spread of Isis worship in the Greek world during the Hellenistic period marked a significant transformation in her role and abilities. She's no longer just an Egyptian mother and a healer. She becomes a goddess of mystery, initiation and personal salvation, assimilating aspects of Greek religious traditions. As Egypt came under Greek rule following the conquest of Alexander the Great, who died in 323 BC, Isis began to merge with Greek deities, particularly Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, and Eleusinian mysteries. Greek worshippers reinterpreted Isis as a universal mother and lawgiver, aligning her with Greek philosophical thought and mystery traditions. She became a mediator between the divine and the human realms. So this from Plutarch. Isis is the eternal mother, so the sustainer of all things, the giver of laws, the queen of the underworld. So becoming both a philosophical deity and more of a mythological supernatural deity as well. Expanding her role into these mystery traditions. Again from Apuleius, I have come to you, O Lucius, moved by your prayers. So the deal with Lucius tried to do some magic. He turns himself into a donkey and is stuck in this bad spot. Goes through the entire book trying to figure out how to save himself from this terrible circumstance. Finally, cries out to to Isis, and then we have this. I have come to you, O Lucius, moved by your prayers. I am she who is the mother of all of the world, the mistress of the elements, the beginning and the end of all things. If you devote yourself to me and take part in my mysteries, I shall free you from misfortune, and when your life is complete, you shall dwell eternally in the fields of the blessed. So this passage demonstrates how Isis is perceived as a personal savior, offering both spiritual renewal in life and eternal peace after death. Unlike the traditional state-controlled religious rituals, the mystery cults of Isis were intimate. They had these transformations, allowing individuals to seek direct communion with the goddess. So you can see the appeal there. Couple concluding thoughts. The influence of the Isis cult in Greece was profound as her mysteries blended seamlessly with existing traditions, allowing her rapid expansion into the wider Greco-Roman world. Her transition from Egyptian queen to Hellenistic savior set the stage for the widespread popularity of Rome, where she became one of the most venerated deities of the imperial era. As we continue, we'll examine how Isis mysteries spread into Rome, where she was worshipped as a state-protected goddess and divine mother, queen of heaven. Okay, so like we pointed out already, when Isis appears in Rome, there was this initial resistance by the Roman Senate. There was later integration into state religion, and then worship by emperors and commoners and anyone who she could relate to. Read to you are already some of the key sources, the main one being the quotes from Apuleius. Her appeal as a universal mother figure, savior, and protector made her immensely popular among women, commoners, and soldiers. She's seen as a divine guardian of emperors, a patron of sailors, and cosmic queen who governed the forces of life and death. The iconography of Isis, particularly in her crescent moon symbol and motherly role, also influenced later religious traditions. And some have made the case that including aspects of Christian devotion to the Mother Mary. So let's look at this broader spread of this religion. It's during the Roman Republic, the Senate's deeply suspicious of these foreign religions. This is early 500 BC. They're questioning whether or not they should accept these things, and some did, some didn't. But particularly those associated with mystery cults and non-Roman deities. But the Isis cult, with its secret initiation rites and ecstatic worship, was seen as a threat to Roman order. As a result, it's banned for a number of years. In the historical context, in Orleans, 2002, the Senate issued multiple decrees against Isis worship, even going so far as to destroy shrines and temples and such. Despite official bans, Isis continued to be secretly worshipped in private homes, underground temples. But as Rome moved into the imperial period, attitudes changed. Augustus was personally wary of cults, allowed it to flourish outside of the official areas, sacred boundaries of Rome. By the reign of Caligula, beginning in 37 AD, and Domitian in 81 to 96, Isis worship had been fully integrated into the imperial religious framework, with temples established throughout Rome and its provinces. Here is a quote again from Apuleius. I am nature, the universal mother, mistress of all elements, first offspring of the ages, supreme among deity, queen of the dead. I think we read this one, but foremost among the celestials and single manifestation of all gods and goddesses. This reflects how Isis could transform into basically anything that they needed her to be. Her symbols include the crescent moon, representing her connection with cosmic cycles. The throne linked her to royal authority and imperial households. The sacred rattle used as ritual ceremonies to invoke her blessings. She's seen as giving birth to the sun, sustaining the world by her will. I mean, by the time we get to some of these statements, we're getting pretty blasphemous for us to be considering. So she's a state-recognized deity, and we have this fusion of Roman politics and Egyptian religion, which allowed Isis worship to spread rapidly across the empire, making this religion extremely influential. And frankly, they ended up having a lot of money because so many people are entering into it, giving over their possessions, and you would do things like you would give your money over and you would fund the construction of a temple, for example. Then you could put a plaque out front with your name on it, and the anticipation of putting that plaque out there would be that someone, either you or your child, would then gain prominence. Of course, we've looked at the biblical opposition, which is to the Queen of Heaven. Isis was revered across Egypt, Greece, and Rome, who worship along with similar gods and goddesses in those cults, were condemned in the Hebrew Bible. Of course, we read from Jeremiah 7. Well, at Jeremiah 44:25, you and your wives have declared with your mouths and fulfilled it with your hands, saying, we will surely perform our vows that we have made to burn incense to the Queen of Heaven, pour out drink offerings to her. So even in Israel, this was taking place. So who is the Queen of Heaven? The identity of the Queen of Heaven remains debated, but Isis in Egypt, given her association with divine motherhood, cosmic authority, and salvation, Isis fits the description of a goddess receiving worship in foreign lands. Asherah is the Canaanite name, a fertility goddess worshipped by pre-exilic Israelites, often depicted as the cohort of whatever their ultimate god was. Ashtoreth is a Phoenician, a Near Eastern counterpart to Aphrodite, and Isis associated with love, war, celestial power. One article from 2019, Showers, argues that the Queen of Heaven condemned in Jeremiah is linked to fertility cults and goddess worship. This is Dr. Reynolds Showers. Suggests that the worship of divine mother figures was a pervasive challenge to biblical monotheism. I agree with Dr. Showers. The condemnation of goddess worship in the Old Testament reflects the broader struggle between monotheism and polytheistic cultures, especially in a world where female deities like Isis played dominant roles. The conclusion here is that the enduring influences of Isis, the role of Isis in Rome, and the biblical rejection of goddess worship highlight the clash between polytheistic and monotheistic traditions in the ancient world. While Roman emperors embraced Isis as the universal mother and cosmic queen, Jewish and early Christian authorities saw her as a dangerous rival to the true worship. So it's a forgery, it's a false religion. But even that said, her legacy survived well beyond the fall of pagan Rome, influencing Christian imagery, mystical traditions, and more esoteric religious movements. Even as her temples were eventually closed under Christian emperors, actually they were generally destroyed, with the last one being destroyed, I believe, somewhere early in the 5th century AD. Symbolism and reverence associated with her continued, ensuring that the Queen of Heaven, in one form or another, remained a powerful figure in Western religious thought. So the enduring legacy of Isis worship extended beyond the fall of pagan Rome, influencing all of this imagery throughout the pagan world. She's going to become one of the most successful fall of the false religions. And in my estimation, the Queen of Heaven is, and Isis, linked to the mystery religion of Babylon, Mystery Babylon. Final thoughts. Simply that ultimately it was recognized by Christians that this is a false religion, and the culture moved away from these false religions, recognizing that they really didn't exist with any power or any authority at all. The temples eventually were destroyed. The movement of Christianity continued to grow by the authority, beginning with the authority of the apostles, then the early church fathers, but especially the authority of the Bible. That provided such a tremendous uniqueness. However, there was always this danger of these mystery religions working their way into Christian circles, especially among the more Gnostic kinds of thinkers. And that did happen. And we see the imagery work its way in a number of different places. So, the study of Isis worship and its transformation across cultures raises a bunch of questions for us to examine and consider from the ancient world. And we consider, how did Rome balance suppressing and integrating foreign deities and these kinds of things? But ultimately, Christians, let me put it this way, there's this enduring legacy of Isis, which is the rise, adaptation, and persistence of Isis worship demonstrated how religious traditions evolve and adapt. And that's what they're doing. They're adapting their ideas to be able to survive. The survival of Isis themes, imagery, devotion, even the altered forms, illustrates the deep psychological and spiritual needs that the Mother Goddess figure fulfilled. The continued appeal of divine motherhood, protection, and salvation helped Isis thrive from ancient Egypt to Greece and Rome, and even influenced these Christian traditions. However, there is that warning. And the ultimate warning is from Exodus. You shall have no other gods before me. The passage encapsulates the central theological challenge posed by Isis worship and other pagan traditions. It serves as a reminder of the biblical call to exclusive worship to the God of heaven, contrasted with the synchronistic and inclusivity that allowed Isis to thrive across diverse cultures. The tension between monotheism and religious pluralism continues to shape discussions on faith, tradition, and roles of religion that are still going on today.